Howdy folks, so just want to do a little video today talking about basics of training goals and when effectively they're not always working together. Now, like anything else, if you're going to be training for something, so that means we're making deliberate choices to improve certain areas, well, it turns out if we just pick one, we're going to probably do a pretty damn good or at least a decent job of attaining that goal. The more goals we have at the same time, not necessarily the less successful we're going to be, but it's likely that we're going to get less improvement on each of them just because we have a finite amount of resources. The further we spread those resources thin, the less progress we're going to make in any given area in a given time. Now, the other thing to keep in mind whenever you're doing any goal setting, specifically when it comes to training performance, is to have an idea of which goals are not necessarily counterproductive to one another, but which of them are naturally going to be more difficult because they're slightly working in opposition. So, for example, if you look over there, we got weight loss, we got weight gain, we've got fat loss, we got muscle gain. It's highly unlikely that you're trying to gain fat or lose muscle, but I bet it happens for some people. Actually, that does happen for some people, but that's pretty relatively rare in most populations. There's gaining strength in a relative, so that's relative to your own body weight, so getting better at push-ups, pull-ups, those type of exercises, and then absolute, so being able to squat more weight, deadlift more weight, bench press more weight, etc. There's gaining power, and then obviously that can be in the forms of throwing implements, can be in form of vertical jump, can be in the form of Olympic lifting, a lot of different ways. Endurance, we can look at aerobic performance, we can look at anaerobic performance, and kind of even slice it a little bit more. We then have improvements in our mobility or flexibility, we've got improvements in speed, and then we've got improvements in skill. Now, let's say we've got an athlete that really wants to bulk up. Well, if we're trying to gain weight and gain muscle, that is going to be two goals that work together pretty well. Just like if we're trying to lose weight and we're trying to lose fat. Those two tend to work together pretty well. But if we're trying to lose weight, gain muscle, and gain absolute strength, those are going to be slightly working against one another, and it's going to become obviously very difficult, especially when we're dealing with a more advanced trainee, a raw beginner, or somebody that we're going to say you have a client or yourself as a 400 plus pound individual, body fat percentage of a well over 50%. Well, turns out, yeah, it's going to be pretty easy to increase muscle, increase absolute strength and relative strength while losing that weight simply because there's so much room for improvement. But if you're dealing with a moderately trained individual, someone that's in pretty decent condition, it's going to be pretty darn difficult to make progress in each of those areas. So assess if these goals really work together. There's nothing wrong with saying you want the athlete to be faster, but if we're actively trying to get that athlete to gain mass, it might be a little bit difficult in that, yeah, you're gaining muscle mass, but your power to weight ratio might not be improving as much as you want. When you're gaining weight, doing things like relative body weight movements, so push-ups, pull-ups, dips, etc., can be a good indicator for athletes of like, are you gaining the right type of weight? Which is if you're heavier and now you can't do as many pull-ups, you can't do as many push-ups, it's an indicator that the type of weight you're gaining might be more the type that can jiggle, not the type that you can flex. And then the antithesis is true. If you're losing weight and then your relative strength is also tanking, you can't do as many pull-ups or you can barely get the same number, well, now you got a lighter body. So in theory, it should be easier to do these movements because you're picking up a smaller frame, but if your strength isn't scaling with it, you can get yourself into issues. So keep in mind when we're working with these goals, which goals naturally work together and which goals can naturally work effectively in opposition. And there's nothing wrong with understanding that, yeah, I'm going to make progress in this one area and I'm just going to try to keep everything at the same point or maybe lose a little bit. So yeah, I'm going to actively really try to lose some weight and lose some fat. I don't think I'm going to gain any muscle. If anything, my goal is just to maintain the muscle mass I have, is to maintain the strength levels I have and try to keep those things as consistent as possible. So thank you guys for listening. Hopefully this cleans up a little bit on thinking about different training goals and how they work together, and have a great day. Bye-bye.